Companies deal in a variety of activities. I've categorized these into what I affectionately call the good, the bad, and the ugly. In the ugly category are incentives. Now, incentives can be very wonderful things, and if applied properly, can be very helpful to companies. They can also be very destructive things, as I'll talk about in a moment, based on the fact that with all the best intentions in the world, they don't function properly and cause additional problems to companies, which can lead them to becoming very successful. Incentives that we think about are piece rate systems that were done back in the early 1900s, mid-1900s, and so forth, and are somewhat used today, where you pay people based on the output that they have. The more that they produce, the more that they make. In a lot of instances, particularly in lean manufacturing and Six Sigma, you tend not to use those kind of incentive systems because you get piles of inventory in a variety of different areas that you don't want, and you don't get the production out that you do want, and it causes a problem. So they can be improperly used. What's better is to do gain sharing, where everybody that's involved in operation or operations work together, make improvements, and they all share together on whatever the improvements are. If you are not making a profit, you cannot pay incentives out to people and to organizations, because that is definitely a no-no. One of the client companies that I worked with had an incentive system when we went in, and it was causing problems. They had 22 operations, each one dependent on the other. So as their product moved from stage to stage, it had to be timed in such a fashion that they were equally timed so that there was no holdup. If there was, then either they wouldn't get the product out that they needed to, or they would have to move product out to have it fixed at a later time, which caused more cost and problems for them and time. They were also not making money, so by paying incentives, they were causing themselves some problems. When we pointed out to them how they could improve on that by doing group incentive of everybody and not just certain select operations, they balked at that. They also wanted to pay on a weekly basis, which is a way too short a time frame in order to pay an incentive. You need to do it over a 3, 6, or 12-month period and base it on the entirety of the work that's being accomplished, as opposed to what's just being done over a short space of time, or you may pay out significantly more money than you need to. And that's what these folks were doing. They didn't want to listen. Another organization that I had paid incentives out, and if people decided that they couldn't make it, then they would just not produce the work that they needed, and now they were running behind on their operations and getting work out. So they were not handling incentives properly. There's a fine line between being good and being ugly. The misapplication of incentives really is a fine line, and hopefully companies will take into account applying incentives properly and listening to folks that know about them before just slapping things in. Again, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and incentives are one of those good intentions. To learn more about incentives, read about it in my upcoming book, What About the Vermin Problem, which is coming out in February of 2020.